Tonight, when you go to bed, you're going to try to do something that your ancestors almost never did. You're going to sleep for 8 straight hours without waking. You'll set an alarm. You'll pull the curtains closed. You'll try to knock out cold from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. But the honest truth is that your body has no idea what you're asking of it. For most of human history, the idea of sleeping 8 hours straight was not normal, it was not healthy, it was not even possible. And yet, somewhere in the last 300 years, we decided it was the only way to sleep. We built an entire industrial system around people who could work from dawn to dusk. Then, we invented electric light. And then, we forgot that sleep was ever anything else. Your ancestors didn't sleep like you do. They knew something you've forgotten. Around 1500, historian Roger Tekach spent years digging through diaries and letters from medieval Europe and colonial America. What he found was startling. People kept mentioning something called first sleep and second sleep. They'd go to bed, sleep for 3 or 4 hours, wake up in the middle of the night for 1 or 2 hours, and then go back to sleep until morning. This wasn't insomnia. This wasn't a problem to solve. This was just what sleep looked like. They called the wakeful period the watch. During the watch, people would get up and do things. They'd pray, they'd visit neighbors, they'd have intimate time with their partners. They'd sit by the fire and think. They'd write. The watch was not a gap in sleep. It was part of the rhythm of sleep itself. Nobody panicked about it. Nobody saw it as a failure of the body. It was simply how humans were built. But around 1750, something shifted. Artificial light got better. Candles became cheaper. Gaslight arrived. And slowly the watch disappeared. Industrial factories needed workers who could be present for 8 solid hours. Schools needed students who could focus for 8 solid hours. Cities needed people who would be productive all day long. So the idea that sleep should be split into 2 chunks started to seem wasteful, inefficient, wrong. By 1900, the consolidated 8-hour sleep was considered the only natural way to sleep. Anyone who couldn't do it was broken. And here you are in 2026, trying to do something that your body has spent millions of years learning not to do. Your circadian rhythm is the second reason sleep changed. Your ancestors lived without electric light. When the sun set, the world went dark. You might have a fire or a candle, but the point is that your body could see darkness coming. Your eyes would pick up the dimming light. Your brain would start producing melatonin. Your body temperature would drop. Your metabolism would shift. Everything would slow down gradually. Naturally, there was no moment of sudden blackness. There was a sunset. But now you live in a box with electric light that mimics the sun almost perfectly. You work under fluorescent lights all day. You sit under blue light screens until 10 p.m. Then you go into your bedroom, turn off the light, and expect your body to instantly know it's time to sleep. Your brain doesn't believe it. Your melatonin isn't ready. Your body is confused. Sleep researcher Dirk-Jan Dijk at the University of Surrey has spent decades studying circadian rhythms. What he's found is that your body clock isn't actually 24 hours. It's closer to 24 hours and 17 minutes. That means you're naturally wired to go to bed slightly later each day. Your ancestors' lives were anchored by the sunrise. No matter what your body wanted to do, the sun came up and your day began. That external cue synchronized your internal clock. But now you control the light. So your body drifts. It wants to sleep later and later. It wants to wake later and later. And you're fighting it by forcing yourself to stick to an arbitrary schedule. Your ancestors knew this. They moved with the seasons. In winter, when there was more darkness, they slept more. In summer, when the sun stayed up late, they slept less. They had the flexibility to listen to what their bodies were asking for. You don't. You sleep 8 hours in January and 8 hours in July, and you call it healthy. The third thing your ancestors understood was the purpose of the watch. That waking period in the middle of the night wasn't a malfunction. It was a feature. During the watch, your ancestors were in a liminal space. Your conscious mind was awake, but your body was in a state of deep rest. Your core temperature was low, your metabolic rate was minimal, but your mind was clear. Some researchers have suggested that the watch was actually when human creativity peaked. Your default mode network was active. Your mind was wandering. You were free from the demands of daytime survival. Problems got solved in the watch. Relationships were strengthened. Existential questions were pondered. When Ekersh looked at the historical records, he found that people didn't describe the watch as insomnia. They described it as lying awake without distress. They'd get up and do something, and then they'd drift back to sleep naturally. There was no catastrophizing, no fear that something was wrong with them, no checking their phone to see what time it was and spiraling into panic because it was only 3 a.m. and they had to sleep more. But now, if you wake up at 3 a.m., your body floods with cortisol, adrenaline spikes. You panic that you've lost sleep, that you'll be tired tomorrow, that you're not sleeping right, and the anxiety itself keeps you awake. You've created a prison that your ancestors never knew existed. Your ancestors also understood that sleep was not the opposite of wakefulness. Sleep was not unconsciousness or a small death every night. Sleep was a state with its own structure and meaning. There were different kinds of sleep. Light sleep felt different than deep sleep. The watch felt different than both. And they all served a purpose. Your ancestors could feel these differences. They paid attention to them. They didn't try to force the body into one rigid state. Modern sleep science is finally catching up to what they knew. Sleep researcher Matthew Walker at UC Berkeley has shown that sleep isn't one thing. It's a collection of states. You cycle through light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep multiple times a night. Each cycle takes about 90 minutes. If you're not getting enough cycles, you're not sleeping well. But if you're forcing yourself into 8 straight hours, you might not be cycling correctly. You might be waking up in the middle of a cycle. You might be in stage 2 light sleep when your alarm goes off. And no amount of willpower can fix that. The modern sleep crisis isn't happening because we're weak or lazy. It's happening because we've tried to force a body that evolved over millions of years to fit into a schedule that's only 300 years old. We invented electric light and thought it was a gift. We invented standardized schedules and thought they were progress. We invented the idea that sleep should be one consolidated chunk and thought it was natural. But every single one of these things is pushing against how your body actually works. Your ancestors knew that sleep was flexible. They knew that the watch was normal. They knew that darkness mattered. They knew that sleep was not something to optimize or hack or force into a spreadsheet. Sleep was something to surrender to trust, to listen to. And the strangest part is that we're finally discovering through sleep labs and electroencephalography and actigraphy and all of our modern scientific tools that your ancestors were right the entire time. We didn't need to invent a better way to sleep. We just needed to go back to what we already knew. So tonight, when you go to bed, your ancestors are still there. In your DNA, in your circadian rhythm. In the part of your brain that still wants to wake up in the middle of the night. They're whispering something you've been trained to ignore. They're telling you that sleep isn't a failure you need to fix. It's a conversation your body is trying to have with you. And if you listen closely, you might remember what you've forgotten about the night.